Hi, I'm Jessica Miller, and I produce There's More to That, the podcast from Smithsonian Magazine and PRX Productions. There's More to That covers history, science, and culture through an insightful lens on the world, grounded in richly reported stories, just like Smithsonian Magazine does. You get to meet Smithsonian journalists and hear how they think about the issues of our time. And speaking of Smithsonian journalists, I want to introduce you to our new host, Ari Daniel. Ari is a former scientist and current science reporter. For more than a decade, he's reported stories from 6 continents on topics ranging from astronomy to coral reefs. He's a longtime public radio contributor whose pieces have aired on NPR, The World, Radiolab, and more. And he joins me now. Hi, Ari.
Hi, Jess.
So we're about to kick off a brand new season of There's More to That. What story are you most excited to report this season?
Most excited. I mean, there are so many good ones, but I will say that the first episode that I got to work on was really fun. I won't say too much about it, except that it involves a fruit detective, an apple that I could have sworn was a pear, and possibly a new way forward for farming and agriculture.
And some Renaissance paintings along the way, too.
I didn't even get to that. Yeah, Renaissance paintings.
Very cool. You might get out into the field a bit this season. What do you have on deck in terms of traveling around for our podcast?
One story that I might get to travel for will focus on a group of individuals called Beeple, which is a portmanteau of the words bee and people. These are folks who try to help find rare bees and support bee communities. And so I might get to go meet some of them and see some of their specimens, maybe even go try to look for some of these rare bees myself.
How do you feel about bees?
I have no problem with bees. In fact, most of my interaction with them is through their honey. I was only stung once, and the bee didn't leave its stinger.
Ari, I understand you used to work with animals before your career in journalism. Can you tell us about that?
I did. I studied animal behavior. I got to work on a variety of species, and those included getting to train gray seal pups, working with narwhals in the wild in Arctic Canada, and killer whales in the wild in northern Norway and off the coast of British Columbia.
I can't even believe working with narwhals is a real thing that somebody can do. What was that like?
That was my first real field work that I ever did. So it was equal parts invigorating and challenging because I was working in a location that is just very difficult. But it was incredible just to see the narwhals up close. It was really something. I learned a lot about doing science and being a scientist. And that was the only time that I got to study narwhals in the field. But the people I was working with, they get out into the field quite a bit and have studied them over the years. In fact, I met a dentist. He's a professional dentist who has a strong interest in narwhals. And he was up there because the tusk is a modified tooth. So he was very interested in that as a sensory organ, perhaps. He pointed out, I think, periodontal disease on one of the narwhals that we were looking at.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was great fun.
I changed my mind. Narwhal dentist is the most unbelievable job now I think somebody can have.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of science, since then, you've become a science reporter contributing to places like NPR and Nova. What's the craziest place you've ever reported a story from?
Oh, the place that I've gone that I think will maybe always be the most enchanting was almost the first radio story I ever did. I tracked down this story for the public radio program The World about an older French gentleman who had spent his career singing these kind of ancient chants, mostly in churches, but really old songs and melodies and scales, you know. And so he had developed this hypothesis that caves in his part of France that were the most resonant in terms of acoustics also had the most cave paintings. And it involved actually going to a cave and getting to walk into this cave, attempting to demonstrate his point by finding this incredible gallery in the cave and launching into song.
Wow.
And his song, Jess, was otherworldly. It was transporting. I was just starting to use this audio recorder and understand its power. and it's magic. And as I heard that song in my headphones, streaming through the microphone, I thought, this is a lullaby that I will have for the rest of my life.
We're making a podcast for Smithsonian Magazine. What do you think makes a good story for our show?
What I think makes for a good story is definitely going to be interesting science, interesting history, but there's more to that. Really, it kind of takes the incredible writing and photography from Smithsonian Magazine and places it in a different kind of sensory space, an audio space. And the podcast can take us behind the scenes on the reporting or take us into the passion of the people who are profiled in the piece, take us to the place where it happened. So for me, I think it's that intersection.
What are some of the other people and places that we will visit this season?
Well, we're going to solve a mystery that dates back to when John F. Kennedy was buried. We're going to learn about the best way to observe an aurora. And 2025 is going to be an especially good year for auroras. So that's an episode you'll want to listen to. And we're going to learn new things about dinosaurs, including some fascinating stuff about their sex lives.
I'm scared, but also intrigued. How can people listen and when?
You can find There's More to That by going to smithsonianmag.com. You can go wherever you usually find your podcasts. And stay tuned because our first episode drops on Thursday, January 23rd.
Thanks so much, Ari.
Thanks so much, Jess. Looking forward to it.
Subscribe to There's More to That on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, and wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you next week.